begins in ways so quiet, you don't even notice. An invitation no longer arrives. The phone stays silent just a little longer than before. Your name isn't brought up in conversations where once you were the center thread. It's not a rejection. It's not even unkind. It's just a soft stepping back of the world. At first there's a sting. That sharp, startled ache of being overlooked. A child inside wants to raise her hand, wants to say, "I'm still here, did you forget me?" But then comes a second breath, and in it, something loosens. You realize you're still here. And maybe, for the first time in a long while, you're here for yourself. That's where the story begins. There was a woman named Helen. She was 74 when it first started happening. A widow for nearly a decade, mother of 2 grown sons, once a tireless community volunteer, hostess of Christmas dinners, organizer of food drives and neighborhood potlucks. And then, quietly, the request stopped. She wasn't needed to bring the pie anymore. Someone else took over the committee. The grandchildren got older. The phone calls, though still kind, were often short, distracted, rushed. Helen would stand by the window sometimes and watch the leaves turn, noticing how long it had been since someone truly needed her. There were days when this felt like grief. Days when she missed being the thread that tied things together. But there were other days, soft, unspoken days, when she felt something else, something like rest. One morning, she woke without an alarm. No plans, no obligations, just the hum of the kettle and the slow stretch of time. She sat outside with her tea and noticed the way the sunlight fell on the rim of her favorite cup. She noticed the birds. She noticed her breath. She noticed herself. And in that noticing, she felt something return. She didn't name it. She didn't need to. But it was hers. And it was enough. There's a strange beauty in seasons when no one is watching, when the applause is quieted, when the spotlight fades, and you are left with the bare truth of who you are. It's here, in this soft obscurity, that the soul can breathe again. Because when we are always seen, always performing, always necessary, something inside grows thin. We give and give, until we forget the shape of our own silence. But being forgotten for a while, gently, naturally, as a tide to get the shore between visits, gives us back to ourselves. There is no shame in this, only softness. Think of the trees in winter. Stripped bare, no one stopping to admire them. And yet, inside, the roots deepen, the branches rest, the inner life gathers its strength. We are not so different. Helen began writing again, not to publish, not to be read, but for the feeling of ink on paper, for the quiet truth of her own voice. She'd sit by the window, pen in hand, and remember the girl she used to be. The one who wrote poems in the margins of school books. The one who once imagined living in a cottage by the sea. She hadn't thought of that dream in decades. And now, somehow it returned, not with urgency, but with gentleness. Being forgotten had given her space to remember what still lived inside her. And this is the first quiet awakening. That sometimes, what looks like being left behind is really a return to what the world never asked of us, but what our soul always did. Later that year, Helen began walking the trails behind her house, not for fitness, not to count steps, but for the pleasure of moving to the trees, without needing a reason. She passed the same mossy rock each morning, the same bent oak, the same curve in the path where the light always seemed to shimmer differently. She started naming them in her head, not with real names, but with feelings. That stone by the path, she called it patience. The oak with a twisted limb, bravery. The curve where the sun lingered longest, she called that one mercy. It became a kind of ritual, walking among these quiet companions who needed nothing from her but her presence. And so came the second awakening, that when no one is asking you to be anything, you finally learn how to be. You walk differently when you are not hurrying to please. You dress for the weather, not the mirror. You eat when you're hungry, not when the clock says so. And you begin to notice the subtle voice of your own body, your own spirit. Rising again, there's a memory Helen returned to often. She was 23, waiting alone in a quiet art museum in the city. Her date had gone to get coffee. She stood in front of a painting for almost 20 minutes, just breathing with it. No one noticed her. No one interrupted. And for the first time in her young life, she felt completely unseen and completely herself. She hadn't remembered that moment in years. But now, at 74, it came back. And this, perhaps, is a third awakening. That our deepest memories aren't always the loudest or the most celebrated. They're often the ones we lived alone, unobserved, where something real met us quietly. The kind of moments you don't post, don't perform, don't even share, because they are too sacred to name. These are the memories that return when we are forgotten for a while, and in their return, they soften us. Helen's days became slower, more textured, less explained. Her sons visited less. But when they did, she welcomed them not as the ever-giving mother, but as a whole woman, rooted in her own stillness. She spoke less, listened more, laughed without rushing. She had become a different kind of presence, not the center of attention, but the still point around which others could rest. And perhaps this is a fourth awakening, that sometimes we are most deeply loved not when we are needed, but when we are simply known. Being forgotten by the world had allowed Helen to become visible to herself, and in that visibility, she became radiant in new, quiet ways. One evening, as twilight fell across her kitchen, she lit a single candle, not for ambience, not for anyone else, but because the flame made her feel tender inside. She sat at the table, hands wrapped around her cup, and whispered to the flickering light, "I'm still here. Even if no one sees me, I see me." And that was enough. There is no rush to be remembered. Sometimes, the most sacred work of the soul happens in silence, in stillness, in the hush between chapters. If you find yourself in such a season, where the invitations grow quiet, where the phone doesn't ring as often, where the world seems to carry on without asking for your name, let it be. Let the forgetting become a kind of clearing, a wide meadow where your spirit can sit down, stretch out, and breathe. This is not the end of you. This is the deepening of you, the you that is not performing, the you that is not proving, the you that is not needed, but simply being, and from that being, something unexpected begins to bloom, a softness, a grace, a way of seeing that only arrives when no one is watching. So light your candle, walk your quiet path, write your tender words, name the curve of sunlight mercy. Let the forgetting be your remembering. Let the silence be your psalm. And one day, when someone finally turns to you again, when the phone rings, when your name reappears in some soft place, you'll smile gently. You'll greet them with open arms. But you'll know, deep in your bones, that you are no longer waiting to be seen, because you have seen yourself. And that is the truest kind of love. We're glad you're here. Even when the world forgets, this small, sacred space remembers you. And perhaps that is enough. Let us know, softly, if this spoke to your heart. Your quiet presence here matters more than you know.